Good evening, everyone here, Roosevelt student, faculty, and friends. Today, I'm so excited to have a dear friend of mine with us today for our Black Artist Conversations in Black History Month. I'm going to let him introduce himself and a little bit more about himself. So take it away.
Good evening, good morning, greetings to everyone. My name is Marty Lamar. I'm honored to serve as the coordinator of the BFA Musical Theater Program at Howard University here in Washington, D.C. It is the only BFA program. We have areas in musical theater, acting, and dance. I should say we have majors in musical theater, acting, and dance. And it's the only BFA program on the campus of an historically black college of university. I'm also a professional actor. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, a proud member of the Actors Equity Association, and I've been very fortunate in my career to be on stages all over, to include off-Broadway stages, to international stages, to television and film. And so I'm honored to be here with you all this evening during this conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. And let's just jump right in. What does Black history mean to you? And also, can you share with our students and faculty who are some of your heroes in the theater, acting, entertainment industry as well?
Absolutely. So, for me, I think Black history, particularly this notion of Black History Month, is extremely dysfunctional. And so I try to always allow myself to never be limited to a month. And I think that it's important that we all begin to say Black history is an annual event that should be celebrated every single day. I align Black History Month with the same way that I align this new term BIPOC, that it marginalizes even further the marginalized communities, and that we have to be very careful that we don't limit our exposure, our resources, our curriculums to just saying, oh, during this month, this is a time where we kind of take the time and investigate. And I know that's such a big part of the work you do with the Black Music Matters movement and with the amazing work that's being done with BME, and to know that now in your current position at Roosevelt, that you're also reminding students that it is your job as an artist to not be comfortable, but it is through those times when we are not comfortable that we make new discoveries, find out more about other communities, other people, other ways of doing things, and that's our job as artists. Uta Hagen talks about the need to be extremely focused on the human condition, the human spirit, that's a part of our responsibility, right? And so I totally and wholeheartedly agree with that. So as it concerns Black history, it is a time set aside for a number of reasons to in the month of February to really focus, but that it's my hope that one day Black History Month will not be necessary because we'll know enough throughout the year where all communities are regarded day in and day out. Some of my greatest heroes are not necessarily in theater and film. They're the people I grew up with. So specifically my grandfather, both my paternal and my maternal grandfather, Arthur Austin, who I never got to meet. He transitioned before I was born. But the stories that I hear from the work that he would do on the stage in Macon, Georgia, and how revered and regarded he was for his booming voice and his ability to captivate audiences, I know that that is a part of the blood that runs through me. And then my grandfather, Henry Lamar Sr., who was another just a powerful voice, a powerful soul-stirring singer that would sing Jesus Keep Me Near the Cross at every opportunity. And I just remember being so transformed by that. And then my grandmother, Sally Green Lamar, who never was on the stage, but I got to grow up in her energy and in her presence and in this amazing church community where everybody in my family was also in the choir. So I got to see three generations of my family work together and create and curate and collaborate. And then my grandmother, Gladys Beatrice Austin, who was an amazing artist. She was my Coco Chanel long before the world knew about Chanel. She was my Kamala Harris long before there was a Kamala Harris. And for me and my siblings and my cousins. She did everything from from design our clothes to um, to make sure that we were well practiced when it came to things like the Easter speech, right? And so my grandparents are just so. I miss them dearly, and I miss them because I know that every time I get an opportunity to create in any way, that they're all with me. And then more people that others would consider to be celebrities or famous. I have so much admiration and respect for James Earl Jones. And it's because long before the world gave him credit for his ability, he was already assured in his ability. And he speaks a lot in his biography and in interviews about having a speech impediment, that he's a stutterer, and how he used the craft to even help him get beyond those kind of human, personal seeming limitations. And what a journey, what a career, what an opportunity he has curated for folks like us to now walk in his path and walk in his footsteps. And then um, so many that have transitioned over these last few years, but those that meant so much to me were Diane Carroll, and I remember understanding her from Dynasty, and then getting to kind of read her biography and hear how she got that role, man, that nighttime soap opera. We don't have many of those anymore, but her work was kind of celebrated worldwide as Dominique Devereaux. But long before that, she had done so much to break grounds, from Julia to just being on stages and doing the work that now allows us to freely go onto a stage. And then, of course, Cicely Tyson. And what I appreciate and love and adore about Cicely Tyson is what she said about how she creates a character. That she wanted to make sure that her hand could fit into the glove of the character that she was going to play, and that's how she knew. And so for me, that is just such a demonstration of power, of self fulfillment, being self full, and also just being led by spirit, that she was not going to compromise. And we saw that at every turn with every role that she ever played. And so those
Absolutely.
are some of those that really mean a lot to me.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. I know that so many of our younger students who are in our program right now are, on their own journey, speaking of how to create characters and self-discovery and self-actualization. Given the fact that, being in a theater program is hard, obviously, that. But being in a theater program at a time like this, where you're not coming in and folks are doing classes exclusively online and Zoom, and particularly when you are a Black person and or a brown person in a predominantly white institution, that presents different types of challenges. And so I wanted to just talk about, or speak to you, or you to speak to our students, shall I better say, about not just your professional experience, but what advice would you give young students, particularly Black and brown students who are in programs right now? What advice would you have given your 18 or 19-year-old self? And then also, what general advice would you give to our acting, musical theater majors, as well as our musical theater dance majors, who are Black and brown folks?
Well, I would tell my 18-year-old self to trust the process, and to trust that the path that you have been on for
It's 5:15.
12 years of your
Hold
life.
one sec. Let's take that one more time. I'm sorry. That's my fault. I apologize.
No, no
We're going to
problem.
pick up right there at the question.
Okay.
So here we go. I'll ask it one more time. Five, four, three, two, one. So can you tell me a little bit more about what advice you would give to your 18 or 19-year-old self, as well as what advice you would give to our students, our Black and brown students who are currently in our programs professionally?
I would tell my 18-year-old self to trust the process and the gifts, and not to judge them, not to let somebody else place that judgment on them. I started classically training on the piano at the age of 7, and I was in conservatory for the majority of my middle and high school years. And for whatever the reason, I believe the narrative that I could not sustain a life being a musician. And so I decided to shift. And I went into the School of Business and Industry, the esteemed and renowned School of Business and Industry, as it were, at Florida A&M University. And when I got there, what I found was a wealth of knowledge that I was curious about, but it was not necessarily my passion. And so, what I understand now is that if I had to do it all over again, I would have started where I ended. I wound up back behind the piano. I did not want to finish the 5-year master's MBA or the 5-year MBA program, so I exchanged to finish in 4 years. And then my last year, I did a piano minor. I failed a number of my classes in the piano minor because I was just conflicted, and I allowed myself, just to forget the places and the people and the cornerstones from which I had come from. And my mother and father, what I think good parents do, good parenting looks like, is when you allow your teenage child to begin to make decisions for themselves. So they never question my decision, but my mom will tell you to this day, she said, "You will always return." And then lo and behold, my first real job, my first gainful employment was being an elementary school music teacher. I could pass the test, and there was someone in the church who had seen me grow up in the church supporting choirs and teaching choirs, particularly the children's choir. And she said, "I believe that you need to teach." And I thought she was absolutely crazy. But to this day, I always speak Mrs. Hajetta Huckabee's name because she, like so many before her, she saw something that I was not available to see in that moment. And so, I would say, Marty, trust the process. And I would also say, Marty, the truth that you need to encounter, you have enough courage and bravery to walk in it, to live in it, and to be strong in it. That's what I would tell. My advice is really simple. At the core of any art is humanity. And when you begin to, and it gives me a little choked up in anger and emotion, because we see so many of our students that come into these spaces where they have been left out. And you don't have to be black and brown. It's not limited to race. Our transgender children and artists are being left out. Those that are same gender loving are being left out. Those that come from very meager means are being left out. And no matter what we try to do, there's no reparation that can restore self love, that can restore faith in humanity and in the human spirit and in the human condition. And so we have to be careful as faculty members that we are creating and curating spaces where people can come, students can come, and discover their artistry by understanding the truth of who they are. It is, in essence, the respect for the craft that I allow Marty to come in. And before I put any Eurocentric idea on Marty, I have a conversation about Marty's experience with the arts, Marty's exposure to the arts, and Marty's desire and passion to further his study in the craft. And I think that if we did that more, by far and large, we see more success, particularly as it concerns students that come from marginalized communities. So to black and brown students, when you open your mouth, that song, that show, when you kick your heels, that dance, be it the golden era of Broadway, which never included black and brown folks, or be it something as modern as Meg Thee Stallion, as soon as it comes out of your mouth, right, it is given a soul, it is given a color, it is given a spirit, because it comes out of your mouth. And so we have to be willing to say to students, hey, yep, we've never seen a black Cinderella. We've never seen one on stage, I should say, in its traditional sense, in the Rodgers and
Yep.
Hammerstein imagined space. But you are a princess. You have an imagination. You have dreams. You have desires. And that is at the core what the story is about. So it really is about getting to the core of the story. And most of the stories that we tell, particularly in musical theater, ain't got nothing to do with race. nothing to do with race. It is the impact of systemic racism that has limited musical theater to only deal with race. And so it's our job, if we ever want to see any big change, and if we don't want to find ourselves in the position and predicaments that we're in now, where our academies across the nation in many ways are having to shut down and kind of reload the barrel a bit because they have missed out on what their responsibility is. And at the core, it is your responsibility to train the total artist void of your own junk. It's very, very important. And so be encouraged, and do what I do. I don't go out seeking archetypes or seeking any idea that is not going to still be rooted in who I am. So it would be unwise of me to try to embody someone that does not have a connection to me in many ways. And oftentimes we limit that to color, we limit that to money and where we live. But it's now time for us to also begin to really question, what are their values? What do they believe in? Where did they go to school? Who are they allowing on the screen and stage with them? Who are they advocating for in these moments? And you will find that by far and large, white, black, brown actors, actresses, directors, choreographers are all dealing with the same thing. Is the advocacy more important, or is the check more important? And you have to do that work for yourself so that you begin to be the change that you want to see. And it might be hard to find those people, but they're out there. They want to support you. They want to be there for you. And they're doing the very hard work. They're choosing humanity and the passion for art over checks, and exposure. And so be encouraged. Be encouraged.
Well, I really appreciate you stopping by and taking the time to share with our students, as well as our faculty, and just to have a real conversation about what it is to be a Black artist in industry right now. And I think that these conversations are just so valuable. And this narrative that many of us have needs to continue to be exposed and illuminated, and shared, particularly for the generations that come after us, and also to inform the conversations even for the folks who came before us. So that we can have a more rounded and I think a more productive conversation around the things that we need to grow as artists here in the United States. In closing, can you tell folks where they can check out more about you, or where they can find out a little bit more about your work and the work you're doing at Howard University?
Sure, you could go to howardmt.com, and you'll find all of the information about our program. You'll see things about our auditions, and how you can share that with other folks. And then if you look on social media, particularly on YouTube and Instagram, Howard MT, and you'll find a collection of work from our students. Now, as it pertains to me, this is where that individual work is very important. I never thought about my social platforms as an artist, and now that is the work that I'm doing. I'm actually working to finalize a website and get those things up, because I still want to work. I'm still a professional, and when the world opens up, I believe that I will be back on the Broadway stage. I believe all those things about my life, but I know that it means that I have to do some work in advance. And so every Saturday I host, and you were one of our amazing guests. It's called Cafe Met. And if you go to Facebook and you go to Martys and Lamar, you'll find a roadmap to get you there, to where you can see me talking to people in all fields and all races, of all denominations and orientations, and talking about what they do, the passion behind what they do, and what brings them joy. Man, it's enough, destructive conversation, depressive conversation to last us for a lifetime. And so let's return to some joy and have some of those kinds of conversations. Being a Black artist, it ain't hard, but it's definitely doable. It becomes even more doable when you're empowered by your history and by the truth. So thank you for letting me share, and I look forward to all that's going on in your world and in the world there at Roosevelt.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Again, it has been a pleasure having you, Marty Austin Lamar from Howard University. So excited to have you today. And I hope you all continue to tune in to our Black Artist Conversations here in Black History Month at Chicago College of Performing Arts at Roosevelt University. Thanks so much.
Thank you.